What's up, and welcome to another Monday edition of Locked On NBA. The biggest stories, the local experts. I'm your Monday host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we're going to be talking to Doug Norrie of Locked On Nets to break down the Nets' decision to bring back Kyrie Irving as a part-time player, as well as what the Nets are dealing with as far as the COVID-19 health and safety protocol ramifications. But first, a quick message from our friends at Built Bar, because look, this holiday season, you can grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. That's Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. So many flavors to choose from. Raspberry, mint chocolate brownie, cherry, double chocolate, my personal favorite, coconut brownie chunk. You can't go wrong with a single flavor on their menu. Whether you're heading out the door in the morning, whether you're trying to lose weight, stay where you're at, just a little meal replacement, anything, right? Built Bar is the protein bar for you. They are the best protein bar on the market. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. You can check them out. Just visit built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off anything site-wide. That's, again, promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Joining us now is Doug Norrie from Locked On Nets. Now, Doug, amidst the surging cases of COVID-19 across the league, all the health and safety protocols, no team has been hit harder than the Brooklyn Nets. And then past that, they decided to bring back Kyrie Irving as a part-time player amidst all of this going on. And I guess where we have to start is this the right decision for the Nets to reverse their decision from, where they originally stood before the season to not bring Kyrie Irving into the fold? They didn't want to have him as a part-time player. Is this the right move for the Nets at the current, juncture?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt it's the right move. We've been saying for sort of like the last week plus on the podcast that it at least needed to be discussed in a real way about bringing him back, because like the situation the Nets were in around the minutes, around some of the superstars, and just like even before the COVID thing happened, not the pandemic, but like this current rash of cases, it seemed very obvious that it would be better to have the way the rest of the league and the team was running. Like half the players in the league are part-time players at this point. So from that standpoint, it really didn't seem like that idea was holding as much weight, really considering the circumstances. So I think for sure it was correct to do, or to at least try. And I'm of the opinion, and I don't know if it's, unpopular or not, that just because you said something early in the season, you need not adhere to it forever, right? Like if the situation has changed and now there's just new information around it, you are allowed to change. I know not everyone feels that way, but we have been saying for the last 10 days or so that they should exploring this option, as it were, and they ended up doing it. The tea leaves were kind of there, and I'm a team with half-time Kyrie is better than a team with no time Kyrie. It's just strictly from a basketball perspective, so I'm here for it.
So you don't have any concerns about this messing with, team chemistry, or even, GM Sean Marks was kind of highlighting that the original decision was made with continuity as a factor in the original decision-making process, to not bring Kyrie into the fold as a part-time player to mess with team chemistry, continuity, everything. Continuity is out the window at this point.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that holds water. That holds water when continuity is everyone shows up every single day and there's no one sitting out for 5 games or whatever. But that's no longer the case. Now, maybe, things change and testing changes and there's fewer players sitting out and then the continuity looks worse. But I don't buy the continuity piece from that respect, simply because there's nothing continuous in the NBA. It's the opposite. Everyone's out. And so at that point, if you're all part-time players, or you're at the risk of being part-time players, then you might as well try something that's going to lighten the load for your team, because it's just better to have him half-time than no time, like I said before. So I don't think, and I think actually that part was probably overstated to begin with anyway. From all reporting, the team unanimously voted to say we're cool with this. Like that I think that it was a top-down decision from the beginning, whether it was optics or just it was different and they didn't want, and they were just holding out hope that he was going to go get vaccinated and make the decision easy. When that didn't happen, I think they were forced to relook at the hand they were being dealt. And like Kyrie wasn't changing I'm not saying I agree with that piece either, but this is just the situation they're in.
You talk about the unanimous decision, that you mentioned beforehand. What's been the general attitude, that you can tell so far of the players and team personnel about this decision to go ahead and bring him back?
Okay, so when I say unanimous, like I should probably say that really there's only one vote that really matters, and that's Kevin Durant. And so like his vote counts for 50, and then everyone else counts for one, would probably be something like that. So when he raises his hand and says that he wants it, I'm not saying he's like a shadow GM or anything, but it's a superstar league, and you'd be nuts to not have your best player, like arguably the best player in all of basketball, be part of the decision making around what's going to happen on the court, because he's literally the whole reason that they're in the in the run for the championship. So yes, I think everyone's vote in the room counted equally when they all proverbially raised their hands. But I think if Kevin Durant, it seems to be that, because a lot of the reporting came out that, he and Kyrie are in contact and they're constantly talking and they remain friends and they remain close. And when that started to leak over the last week, it became pretty clear that this was an orchestrated attempt to begin the process of like, he's coming back, right? Like we know Shams and Woj are essentially PR arms of each team and players and stuff like that. And when those stories come out, it's just, there's always fire where there's that smoke is kind of blowing up. So I think that he probably wanted it. The team probably looked at it and said that we're fine with it. And I think that all the players, like here's one more thing. I know I'm going on, but Kyrie is, for all of his oddities and picadillos and whatever else he has, he is pretty universally loved by other NBA players. Like other NBA players really like him. And I think that if you just said, hey, he's going to come back and play part-time, and that's going to be the case, there's no world, I think, where anyone says no to that, because I think that all kind of lines up.
You mentioned kind of the burden that has been shouldered largely by Kevin Durant, throughout this whole situation with the Brooklyn Nets. How beneficial is this going to be for KD? He's averaging his highest minutes per game since he was 25 years old, his last healthy season in Oklahoma City. And also, Doug, is it really overblown, the workload that he's really kind of put on himself? I mean, even he has kind of brushed it off occasionally to the media, and then subsequently the next, right, he brushes it off one night saying, "Oh, I might play 48 minutes, the next game," and then gets sat on the second night of a back-to-back because they didn't want to overwork him. So how much of a concern do you have on the workload he's faced so far?
Yeah, huge concerns. There's no way you should not be taxing him to the point that they were probably taxing him early on this season for games that are going to mean very little when it actually comes down to it. They're not missing the playoffs. If they're fighting for seeding, I kind of get it. But it really shouldn't come at the expense of his workload. Adam and I have talked on the podcast a ton about how we thought the minutes were too high. It's just the thing that leads to injuries. He's been very injured in the past. Like, he's looked amazing. He seems to have had no problem with it, but that you can fall off the cliff pretty quickly with that kind of thing. And so, yeah, they've just been forced. Unlike a lot of other good teams, say the Warriors or like the Bucks when they were at their peak, right? The Nets also they were winning games, but they weren't blowing anybody out, which meant that every game ended up being a huge load, right? Like, it ended up being for him way more minutes than you want. If you think back to those Bucks years, or even the Curry, like when they were just completely bodying people, they would get 30-minute nights, right? 29-minute nights, because it was over by the beginning of the fourth quarter. You need not bring them in. The Nets really haven't had any game like that. And so, yes, they were able to sit him out, but every game was just this constant struggle of, yeah, we're winning, but he's playing 38 minutes. I think it's definitely a concern. If you're taking the long view on the team, he cannot be playing 38 minutes a night. It's totally nuts. So the part where anything that they can do to lighten that load is pretty critical to do now before it cascades to this massive problem later on, which sometimes you don't see coming, and then all of a sudden you tear your Achilles, right? Like, it just like sometimes these things just happen because of fatigue or whatever. So I'm all for anything that's going to lighten the load, because I don't think it's overblown. I think they really needed to dial. They talked about it. Nash said, we either play them less or we lose games. Well, you might just have to lose games. I don't know. So anything that can take the load off, I'm definitely here for.
Well, the Nets are still sitting atop the Eastern Conference despite everything that's been going on with the team. No, and hey, a couple games off here, right? I mean, if there's any, I guess there's sort of a silver lining in there, if you can even glean a silver lining from everything going on right now. But next couple nights off for the Nets, right?
We joked about it, sort of like it's like sort of a half joke, half true about. Yeah, they have to take a couple of games off, and Kevin Durant was going to have to just be forced to sit out. And all parts where we hope he's happy and healthy and all that stuff aside, which, by all accounts he is, because, he tested positive. The part where they just have to, their hand is forced and they just have to sit him out for 4 games is far from the worst thing in the world with this team. Like if you just ask, because he'll never volunteer to sit. He does not want to sit. The guy wants to play 48 minutes a game. He's just built like this. He's a total predator when it comes to how he plays in the basketball court. And he's the kind of guy, sort of like Giannis too, like you just need to force him out at times. And this had the effect of doing that. It's a stupid situation. It's unfortunate, but like, is it the worst thing in the long term for the Nets in minutes? Like, definitely not.
Well, Doug, you're going to have this and everything else Brooklyn Nets covered for us over at Locked On Nets. Thanks for coming on Locked On NBA with me.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot.